What's up, YouTube? This is Guy, and today I have something to show you that's pretty interesting. A viewer of mine who has loaned me a number of watches over the last year let me know that he was going to send me something. He said, hey, I have this watch that I want you to check out. It's a watch made by Weiss. Now, while the watch itself is a pretty cool watch in its own right, what's really interesting about this watch is the brand's history. And it's a very young company. I think it's only actually been around for maybe 5 years or so. But what it is it's a young fellow out of Los Angeles, or maybe originally San Francisco. Just a guy that was passionate about watches as a young adult, went to a watchmaking school, and eventually said, hey, I want to make American-made, US-made watches. And he started up this company in, again, about 2013 roughly, if I'm not mistaken. And, that basically leads us here today and to the watch that we have on the table. Now, this particular model, and they only have a couple of models on their website, is called the Weiss Field Watch, or perhaps it's standard issue Field Watch. And again, in its own right, it's a cool watch. But I think what's interesting is, again, the history of the company, the fact that this fella wanted to make American-made watches, and from the ground up, started out with nothing, and he doesn't have a watchmaking empire, but he's making great quality American-made watches. He's followed his dream, and I'm pretty impressed overall with the quality of this product. Now, as far as the watch itself, here we have it in a more or less pretty basic pine box. It's a first time I've seen a presentation like this. We can slide the lid off. I'll get that out of the way, show you the contents of the box, and then get the watch out. The box comes with a basic little card here. Sorry about that. On the back side just gives you some information about your watch. And then a very, very simple one-page fold-open instruction. I hesitate to even call it booklet. It's just a super simple one-page little instruction, outline, for lack of a better word. Underneath that, you have a little foam pad to protect your watch. And then, of course, there is the Weiss Field Watch. It is a really nice looking watch. There's a lot of things to like about it. I'm pretty impressed with it. And I'm going to pull it out of the box here. I'm going to get everything out of the way and zoom in a bit closer and give you guys a nice close look at it. Alright, well, if you know me and you follow my channel, you know that I like field watches. It's one of my favorite styles. And while this is not maybe the 100% most traditional field watch, it certainly has a lot of that aesthetic in it. And I think that it's a really handsome piece. Basic specs on this guy. We have a case diameter of 42 millimeters. We have a thickness of roughly 13 millimeters. And a lug width here of 20 millimeters. The case is a very nicely brushed, mostly brushed finish case made of 316L stainless steel. There are some polished portions, this outer bezel here, which sort of, if we look really close at it, it's interesting. It's kind of almost like this weird, dome. I'm not sure if it's actually a bezel that's fit to the case and the crystal, or if it's a part of the case itself. It's difficult to tell. I don't see any sort of line of separation. But anyway, as far as finishing is concerned, it's a nice mirror polished, we'll call it bezel, again for lack of a better term. Of course, we have a crown over at 3 o'clock, which has the Weiss logo signed on the side of it. But yeah, the overall quality and the finishing of this case, it is great. If we get in close here again, and we look at the tops of the lugs, for example, that brushed finish, very, very smooth, very, very even. I'm quite impressed with this, considering this is coming out of, basically a micro brand, all handmade in the USA. A very small company. I mean, pretty impressed with the overall fit and finish and the quality of this watch. It does come with a domed sapphire crystal, and the case back, it has an exhibition case back, so you can see that movement is also made of sapphire. So that's a pretty nice bonus that you're not going to find on a lot of watches in the realm of affordable price ranges. And well, we could probably debate on whether or not this is still considered an affordable watch. The price listing on their website comes in for this particular piece $950, as my memory serves, if I recall correctly. So yeah, is it affordable? I feel like anything under $1,000 is still probably considered an affordable watch. So yeah, having a sapphire case back display window, That's a nice little bonus. Now, the sapphire crystal that is on the display panel, as you can probably see as I zoom around here, no anti-reflective properties whatsoever. I mean, you can see me there, and you can see the camera, you can see my ceiling fan, the lights in my studio, very, very bright. There's a lot of glare. There's probably a pretty big debate on whether or not you would want to have double anti-reflective coating, that is coating under the underside and the top side of a crystal, or just single coating. In either case, I think that this particular watch, this crystal, would benefit greatly for at least one layer of coating on the inside at a minimum, because again, quite a lot of glare coming off of this crystal. That said, when you catch it in the right light, when you don't have any sort of reflections bouncing off of it, very, very clear, very clean, very crisp and legible. So it's not all bad. It's just like, I don't know, a brand like Hamilton, for example, that is a brand I love. Their crystals, they're sapphire crystals as well, and the fact that they have no anti-reflective coating, it suffers in terms of legibility. But anyway, moving along with the rest of the specs, we've covered the crystal. It is water resist to 100 meters. The crown is not a screw down crown, however, so you're going to want to be particularly careful about potentially bumping it out while it's underwater if you do submerge it. I'm sure that is perfectly fine. I've played around with it a little bit, and it's got quite a tight fit, so I wouldn't think that you would accidentally bump it out of position. The biggest risk would be, did I actually push it down after using it the last time, and then going in the water. So yeah, make sure your crown is pushed in, obviously, and you will get 100 meters of water resistance. Now, this particular model does have luminescence material, but I don't know, it's good and bad. It's good in that it's extremely bright and it's pretty nice. The lume is bad because it's only on the hour and the minute hands. If we look at those hands up close there, they're stainless, or they're steel hands, not stainless steel, and they have like a black oxide coating or finish on them. And then in these, center portions, we see that white material. Of course, that's the lume. That's the only lume present on this watch, and that's a problem in regards to finding your orientation when you're trying to read it in the dark. It's bright enough that it is very legible in the dark, but if you're not perfectly squared up here, am I pointing at 10 and 14, or am I, depending on which way your wrist is cocked, it's kind of going to be difficult to find your orientation and determine exactly what the time is. I wish maybe on at least a minimum on the very outside of the chapter ring there was little luminous pips. Obviously it would be ideal if the numerals were lumed, anything basically. But the lume that it does have on it, it is very bright, quite good. The other thing that we can tell you about this watch is the strap. It's Weiss's brand. I don't know if they make the straps in-house like they do the watches, but it is branded and it is quite good. It's a Cordura canvas strap that is lined on the backside. I'm not sure if the lining is a synthetic material or a true leather. I don't see any sort of indications that tell you one way or the other. But, the Cordura canvas material, very nice. The stitching is well done. It's kind of got a mild contrast between that olive drab canvas and sort of a coyote tan stitching, which is more apparent when you look at the backside. And then again, this nice black lining that may or may not be leather. I'm not 100% certain. The watch's movement is also pretty interesting. It's Weiss's Calibre 1001 mechanical movement. Now, a little bit I can tell you about that movement. It's not like an in-house movement from what I understand. What it is it's a Swiss 6497 base movement that is finished and assembled in the USA, in their factory in, I believe, Los Angeles, right? That's Los Angeles, California is what it says there on the bottom of the dial. It's a 17 joule movement. It's got a 46-hour power reserve. It runs at 18,000 vibrations per hour, and everyone gets crazy about the smooth sweeping second hand. I have to have that 28,800 vibrations per hour. Nobody wants a 21,600 vibrations per hour movement. Well, this one is even lower. It's 18,000. The thing that I will point out about that and why it's not particularly important. If we look at the sub-dial for the running seconds, because it's such a small dial, it's a small hand, it still looks pretty smooth. It's not all, herky-jerky or, choppy or anything. It's when you have a second sub-dial for your active seconds with a little tiny hand like that, it's less apparent that it's not, a nice smooth sweep, regardless of the beat rate on it or the vibrations per hour, just because of the sizing. So I don't find the fact that it's an 18,000 vibrations per hour movement to be a problem or not to be aesthetically pleasing in that regard. Now, one thing that I do find to be sort of a aesthetic or design or style negative is I'm not a big fan of this 9 o'clock offset sub-dial for the seconds. If they're going to do an offset, or not an offset, but a sub-dial for your second counter or second hands, I prefer it to be centered up at the 6 o'clock position. That's just me. I don't like asymmetrical layouts or designs. I don't know, my brain is like, I want everything to be nice and symmetrical and even, I guess. So that doesn't appeal to me a lot, but, if you're into that, more power to you. I'm not going to call it a negative, though, because it's a really nice-looking sub-dial. It's perfectly legible. Just, the orientation for me is not preferred. The rest of the dial is very simple, very straightforward. We have, Arabic numerals 1 through 12 in a crisp, clean font. A very nice outer chapter ring. It's very precise, and it's kind of funny that it's got so many graduations of precision, considering you don't have a big second hand pointing at all of those. All you really have is the hour hand there. But that's a very common or typical design cue from field watches. So if it weren't like that, it would maybe throw off the design a little bit. I guess in the end, what I would prefer is to have a normal second hand running off of the center post of the handset, that goes all the way out to the chapter ring, and there's the tip just touches every one of those little graduations. I would prefer that to this offset 9 o'clock running second sub-dial. But regardless, again, the chapter ring, it looks nice. It looks very technical. It's in line with the aesthetic that you would find in a field watch. You have Arabic numerals 5, 10, 15, 20 for, the current minutes. So obviously very easy to tell the time. 10, 19, perfectly legible. It looks great. Just, basically a flat black dial otherwise with the Weiss branding at, sub right below 12 o'clock in Los Angeles, California, there below the handset. Otherwise, it's very plain, very straightforward. No date complication, no other complications at all. But it's nice. It's handsome. Other than the fact that I'm not a fan of the offset sub-dial there. But other things that I kind of wanted to touch on about the movement before we get past that discussion. It is a hand wind only movement. If we look at the back here, it's just a pure mechanical movement. There's no oscillating rotor for automatic winding. The decoration on it's not bad though. You get those little engraved lines. I think it's called like Côte de Genève or Genève or whatever. I don't know the proper terminology for that exactly. But you see we're 17 jewel. It's got a little Swiss label, the Weiss branding. You obviously see your oscillating hairspring balance wheel there. All the little jewels. The screws are all blued, so it stands out nicely. It's a pretty attractive and nicely decorated movement. It's not a piece of art or anything, but I think it looks good. And obviously they put some time and some care into putting this together. It is, again, since it's not automatic, it's only a hand wind movement, and when your crown is pushed in all the way as it is now, you just give it some rotations. 40 rotations, they say, will give it a complete wind for the entire power reserve. I will say that it's a stiff wind, and the crown, while it does have some knurling there, if we can get it to focus so you can see, it does have some texturing, some knurling. The fact that it's got so much resistance when you're winding it makes it a little difficult if your hands have any sort of oils on them, or if my fingers aren't full of calluses, it's not really easy to get a nice grip on it, I guess is my point. But it does work. It has a very positive and satisfying feedback as you're winding it. You probably even can hearing it pick up on the microphone, I'm guessing. It's loud, but it doesn't feel unrefined or gritty. It feels very solid. It's like, you know, machinery almost when you're spinning that crown. Pulling the crown out to the first position to set the time does not hack the movement. As you can see, the seconds continues to run. That's a little bit of a disappointment. I would much prefer a movement that hacked. And when it's such a simple mechanism, such a simple movement, and you know, I'm using the term simple to be relative. I got a little bit of a smudge there on the crystal. I'll try to wipe that off for you guys. Sorry about that. But anyway, since it's, you know, a relatively simple movement, it's still on there. Hang on one second. All right, as I was saying, sorry, I can't speak. Since it is such a simple movement, yeah, I'd like for the watch to hack when you pull the crown out, so that we can precisely set the time to, you know, whatever time we want. That would be a welcomed feature. And I feel like at the price point, at, you know, $950, you should pretty much expect to get a hacking, hand winding, and if it were an automatic movement. Of course, this isn't automatic, but regardless, yeah, those are some features that I would expect to have at a watch at this price point. So that it doesn't have that is a little bit of a letdown. Other than that, you know, again, I touched on the strap briefly. I do like the strap quite a bit. I'll go ahead and throw it on my wrist and give you guys a little bit of a wrist shot, just so you can see how it looks, you know, on the wrist, and then we'll close this review out. Alright, so here it is on my roughly 6 3/4 to a 7-inch wrist. I think that another negative about this watch is it's a hair on the big side. It's not too big and it's not too thick. It wears pretty good, but at 42 millimeters, I'm reserving that size for like dive watches. I don't really want my field watches or dress watches to be quite so large. It's not really bad, and like I said, it looks nice, particularly that domed crystal. When you catch it in the right angle, you know, it looks really good. Problem is you catch it in the wrong angle and you get all kinds of glare and visual feedback. But yeah, I wish it were a hair smaller. Now they do have a 38 millimeter model on their website as well, and I think that the 38 millimeter would be just about perfect if I had to guess. But at 42 millimeters, it's not unmanageable, even for me with you know, relatively average sized wrist. Again, I just wish I wish we could shave it down a little bit. So yeah, that's the Weiss standard issue field watch, I believe is what they call it. I've just been calling it the field watch. Quality seems really good. The background information, the history of the company is really cool, and if you're looking for a made in the USA watch, or mostly made in the USA with some Swiss parts in the movement, I mean, you know, it's a great option if you want to, if you're the type of person that says, like, I'm tired of buying stuff from overseas, I don't want any more Japanese watches with Chinese parts in them, whatever, I want an American watch. You know, this is a great option for you. I don't think there's a whole lot in the market that would fill that void, so, you know, keep it in mind as an option. Alright, that's about everything I can tell you on the Weiss Field Watch. I appreciate you checking it out, and I hope to have another review video ready for you shortly. Alright guys, take care, bye.